The boomers, my generation, are toast because we're so dependent on this thing called a 401k, which is a defined contribution pension plan. In other words, the defined contribution means if you put in $1 million, hopefully get $1 million back. But the old pension plan was called a defined benefit. So if you worked for Ford Motor Company and they promised you $1,000 a month, Ford guaranteed the $1,000 a month. As long as Wall Street stayed up, it was a good deal. And prior to 1971, it was really smart to save money because after 1971, they started printing it. 74 was the ERISA. 74 was a major change. And then came the 87 stock market crash, and a few people understood that the thing about gambling. Then came the Glass-Steagall. They repealed Glass-Steagall, I think around 1995 or something like that. It made commercial banks and investment banks the same. You could gamble. And there was so much corruption that came when you had investment banks and regular savings banks getting together. So they started putting savings of the savers into the stock market. That's what the repeal of Glass-Steagall did. Then we had the crash of 2000, which they called the dot-com crash. Then came 2008. They call it a subprime mortgage crash. And they blamed the poor people for the crash, but it wasn't the poor people who did it. Again, it was Wall Street, the Treasury, and the Fed. And then they never fixed the problem. And all they did was print more money. So 1971 continued on in mass after 2008. They started coming up with things called quantitative easing. And what the quantitative easing was to do was to keep money into the economy because it was like this huge hot air balloon going in the sky that if that hot air balloon came down, the little gondola was you and me. We'd get crushed. The baby boomers have only known an up market. And now the end is near. They're starting to retire out just as the market is topping. China's coming down. We have trouble in Europe. I'm just watching this whole thing going, what's going to happen to the boomers? Because they actually had it the easiest of any generation I've ever seen. The boomers had it the easiest of all generations. You know, when we came out of high school, college and high school, we put money in the stock market, everything went up. We bought houses, everything went up. And now it's about to come down. What happens in a bull market is that at the top, people are happy. So here we are at the top of a bull market. But when the bear goes out the window, it comes down so fast. Like I think it was Ernest Hemingway who said, how did you go bankrupt? Slowly at first, then suddenly. Suddenly it's coming. You know, if you like stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs, have a good life. But once I saw the process of how you take nothing, you take a bunch of BS, and you turn it into a stock and you take it public on the Toronto Stock Exchange, and then, if lucky, it goes to the NASDAQ or the New York Stock Exchange. I really don't like the process personally, you know, but all it did was convince me why gold, silver, and today Bitcoin, far more solid investments given what's going on in the economy.
The big debate is there inflation or deflation? And if you look historically, what's happened today is the nominal debt to GDP is a correlation of M2, the volume of money, times the velocity of money. And the reason Yellen and Powell are scrambling is because they've expanded M2, so everybody thinks there's going to be inflation. But the velocity of money is plummeting. People are not spending.
In 1970, when I graduated from school, $1 million at 15% interest earned me $150,000 a year. Now, you could live on $150,000 a year back then. But in 2016, due to this thing called quantitative easing, I call it the Greenspan put. It's $1 million at negative 5 basis points. It's going to cost you $1 million to save $1 million. That is how deteriorated our financial systems have become. And this is one of the causes between the gap between the rich and the poor.
This book came out, Communist Manifesto came out in 1848. But in 1965, I left Hawaii and I went to school in New York, military school. First word is mission. What is the mission? Everything is mission driven. And then my instructor to study economics, he had us read the Communist Manifesto, Mein Kampf, Mao's little book, and other things, so we understood who the enemy was. What he recognized was the flaws, again, in 1848, the flaws in capitalism. So stage one would be socialism, which we had in 1933, FDR puts us on Social Security, got welfare, Obamacare, and now we have so many Americans without that government stimmy check. We're finished. Then he said stage two would kick in. So in 2020, I'm not a Republican or Democrat, I'm not endorsing Trump, who's a friend of mine, or Biden. I'm saying communists took over in 2020. A capitalist is somebody who believes in teaching people to fish. And a socialist wants to give people fish. And then I just divide them that way. And so also what's happening with your generation and actually with Gen X, the income of men is dropping. If inflation is in asset prices, like the stock market, real estate, we make fortunes. But the working guy out there working for $50 an hour or whatever they work for today, he just took a haircut. Then he can't afford to live. And then you have the southern border right on our border right here, wide open. People are coming in droves. They have smash and grabs. This is all stage two communism. It is so screwed up, I can't believe it. There was capitalism. Stage one was socialism. They couldn't accept communism at first. So what Marx says, we have to put in socialism as stage one. So that was Social Security, everybody's now on Medicare, welfare, and all that. We're now a welfare nation. So stage one, which is socialism, completed. The fractional reserve system and bank reserve currency, which is macro, that's where the heist took place. And my English instructor, this is in 1966, 65, he says sometime in the future, communism is going to step in. And communism is opposite of socialism. What happens is when communists take over from socialists, they murder the socialists. If you look at history, every time communists took over, the first people they kill are the intellectuals. And that's about to start.
All Wall Street in America has done is rip off the pensions because, pensions are the biggest pool of money in America. And states like Kentucky, New Jersey, Illinois, California, Hawaii are going bankrupt because Wall Street went in and just sucked all the cash out of their pensions. So the school teachers like my dad, the firefighters and police officers, they have no retirement now. And so that's why it's fake money, fake teachers, fake assets. They're the same system. If you're not going to study, you're not going to practice and all that, then you should do what Wall Street tells you to do. Buy, 401ks, mutual funds, ETFs and all that. But that's where they're fake assets, because they only make Wall Street or the City of London rich. Just watch where the cash is flowing. Follow the money.
Before we continue, help us clicking that YouTube like button and subscribe now to our channel. This shows the algorithm that you valued this information. And it helps us spread that message. Sharing is caring. And now, let's continue.
Do you want to know one thing about crypto? I made over 3,000% in profit in a few weeks. Fact is, the traditional financial system, the traditional money system makes you poor, not rich. If you want to earn $500,000, $1 million, you have to wait until you're 50, 60, 70 in the traditional financial system, and you probably will still be broke. And you will be old. This is not a sexy combination, as you can imagine. But the question is, how can you start in crypto and make these profits? Where to invest? Where do you start? My name is Gunnar and I'm from Germany, as you can hear, and things are a little bit different in Germany. More about that later on. Fact is, there are lots of different cryptocurrencies. It's a gigantic universe where beginners and professionals get easily lost. But there is light at the end of the tunnel. There are 7 key steps you need to follow to become successful in this market. You have to know them, and if you fail one of them, it's literally impossible to succeed in this market. Just an example, one of the key points is your exchange, and one of the biggest are, for example, Binance and Coinbase. These are trusted and well-established exchanges, but, and this is a big but, You won't find the super profitable coins on those exchanges. The unknown super profitable coins that get gigantic profits are not traded on those kind of exchanges. They are traded on much smaller insider platforms that are barely known. And I can tell you what those super secret exchanges are and why they are so profitable. And another super important thing are the right information sources. The point is, the internet is gigantic. There are hundreds and hundreds of YouTube channels, blogs, pages, and much more. And there are also market makers and influencers. For example, Elon Musk, he is not a crypto guy, but the moment he recommended Dogecoin, it went through the roof, to the moon, so to say. But why did he recommend it? Where did he hear it from? He didn't hear it from newspapers. And believe me, he is listening to someone. But you have to know who, and you have to react before he is reacting. This is really important. And these are only 2 of the 7 steps you have to follow in order to be successful in crypto. And if you want to know all of these steps in much more detail, and if you want to have a comprehensive checklist, here's what you should do. There is a link below this video. Click on this link and you will get the opportunity to subscribe to my channel. Click on the link and you will see a video where I explain the next steps. So see you soon. Click on the link now. I'll see you there.